Hi everyone, this is Mary, you're on Mary Reads, and in today's video I'm going to review a book that I just recently finished, and it's Paris by Edward Rutherfurd. I have to talk about this book in a separate video because it's like 850 page long and there are just too many things that I want to mention, and it just wouldn't make sense to make it a part of some other video. I have coffee with me here because, well, we need to get through a lot of information. Let's start reviewing. Edward Rutherfurd is known for writing historical fiction. He has a whole series of historical fiction novels. I read New York. I know there is also London. There is the one about Russia that I showed earlier, and it was in one of my reading plans video. And I know that there are novels about Ireland. I think there are two of them. So I don't know how the ones about a whole country are built, like about Russia and Ireland, because it feels like it's a huge territory to cover. And he also tends to cover the whole history of the city. So I have no idea how the ones about a whole country work, but here, as in New York, we talk about a history of Paris, and we go through 700 years of history. My main problem, my main thing with this novel was that Paris is a very old city, and going through 700 years of history is, I was very worried that it's not going to be detailed enough. New York is easier for me to understand. It has a shorter history and it's easier to get into details with that book. But this one, I had my doubts. So I would say that if you're looking for history in historical novel, if you're looking for the historical part, you want to see how history changed lives of people, this is probably not the book to take, because here we focus on people themselves and their lives, and history is kind of happening on the background. Of course, everybody is affected by First World War, Second World War, French Revolution. Of course, people are affected by it and they suffered from it and their lives changed. But while I was reading this book, it made me feel like we're focusing more on people rather than history. And if you want a deep dive into history, if you want to know how each historical event changed lives of these people, how their everyday life changed, how their habits changed, that's not going to be shown in this book. Here we mostly go through people's relationships, people's connection to one another, people's worries, and their personal matters and their personal lives. So first of all, I think it's important to understand how the book is built. We are following 6 families that are very different in status, in class, in their religion, and they are intertwined. So you have a family tree here. I hope you can see it because it's a huge tree, and it's hard to understand what's going on here. But we're following these 6 families throughout 700 years of history of Paris. We start in 1261 and we finish in 1968. And we only talk about these 6 families. They get married to one another, they hate one another, they have romances with one another, and we see the story through perspectives of different people from different families. And each chapter is about a certain period of time. So the first chapter is 18 something, so it's 19th century. The next chapter is 1261. Then we get to, let's say 1860. Then the next chapter is going to be about 13 something something. So we jump in time and we see different people from these families. So they have the same last name, sometimes even the same first name, and they are just in a different historical period. So you just keep jumping. And this was the thing that you need to understand before starting a book, because it's hard to figure out who is whom, what's going on, and how these people are connected. So is this that person's grandfather, or is that his father, or is that his second uncle? For that, you do need the family tree. But one thing I have to say, please don't look into a family tree if you don't need to. So if you're reading the book, you're already reading the book, and you're like, oh, why don't I just look into the family tree? You will catch a lot of spoilers. That was my mistake. At some point, you do need the family tree. At some point, I realized that I don't remember who's whom. And I opened the family tree, and it helped me see what's going on and how is this person related to that person. And I kind of was able to do like a full structure in my head. But sometimes I was like, okay, I haven't looked into the family tree for a while, so why don't I open it? And I caught some spoilers. For example, we see this girl who is at the age when she should get married, and there are 3 people who are fighting for her heart. And I don't know who she's gonna choose. I know that she likes that guy, but I also know that that guy's from a good family. So who is she gonna end up with? And I opened the tree, and I could right away see who she ended up marrying, how many kids they ended up having, where which last name she ended up taking, and I even understood where she's gonna live just based on who she married. So that's gonna give you a lot of spoilers. Be very careful with that. But don't hesitate to use it if you understand that you are losing track of the characters. You need to use the family tree. Then it comes to the plot. Because the author has to go through such a long period of time, 700 years, that's quite a bit of time. We see a lot of gaps in the plot. First of all, we don't go through each year, obviously. We don't go through, we started with 1261, so we don't go through 1262, 1263, we jump. And sometimes the gaps are 100 years, and you don't understand what happened in that period of time. You don't understand like where this family got this estate from, or where this family got this like painting from. You're a little lost. And the bigger issue is when characters start doing something that you didn't expect them to do. Like you leave them at a certain point in their life, and the next time you meet them, they are like a completely different person with completely different issues and completely different problems, and you don't understand where this is coming from. For example, we see one character who decides to go to the army, be an officer, who fights in World War I. He's an aristocrat. His family has a lot of money. He is grieving because his father died and he couldn't marry a girl he liked a lot. And then he comes back from the war. You see him after the war next time, and you realize that not only he's married, he's widowed. He has a son. Where did the son come from? Who is the woman he married? How did their relationship even go? You miss all that, and you feel like cheated on because you don't understand what's going on. I left this character, I thought I know who he is, and then I meet him next time, and it's a completely different person. And I can't relate to him anymore because there's this huge gap. I didn't see him for these like 6 years, and he's widowed. That was my big problem with the book, and I understand why it happens, again, because the book has to cover 700 years of history, but do something with it. I feel like there is some logic lacking. I don't understand what's happening. And the same thing happens on even a bigger scale. For example, there is this family that they are aristocrats, they are a young family, they are trying to have kids. The woman has had 2 miscarriages, they are grieving, but they still are hopeful that they're going to have a family, and the French Revolution starts. And it's such an interesting plot. You see these 2 young people who love each other more than anything, who want to live, who want to have a family, who are hiding. They're hiding. They don't go out on the street because of the French Revolution. And then they get caught. And you start sympathizing with them. You want to know more. You want to see what's happening, what's going on. And it abruptly finishes, and that's it. You just find out that they ended up having a kid that they wanted to have, and that's it. And then there is no even chapter about the kid. I felt like I don't get enough. I needed more. I needed more of these stories. It's not only one instance, there were a bunch of cases like that. And I just wish I had more. You could write a whole book just based on that one story, but the author gives it 11 pages, and I'm still hungry. I need more of that. I understand that you need to spend 100 pages covering World War II because it was just so eventful. But you can't give 11 pages to that family and then leave it like that. That's not enough. And that brings me to the next issue. Throughout the book, we cover a lot of very similar topics. You have two main ones, religion and illegitimate kids. So, of course, if you're an aristocrat, you need to marry someone from your own class who has your status. And these people are looking specifically for a wife for their son, or for a husband for their daughter. And of course, in these cases, love happens. You can fall in love with someone who you can't marry. Of course, you get illegitimate kids in the end of the day. So you get these, I understand you get these instances, you get these situations. But then we had a couple of the same issues throughout the book. I wish it was a little bit more. I wish you covered more issues, or you just cut those out and gave more time to characters that you don't cover enough. So I just felt like we are going in circles here. And the same thing was with religion, like Catholics couldn't marry Protestants, or Protestants had to leave, and Catholics left with them because they fell in love with them. You get through the same issue over and over again. It was not just one set of characters who had to deal with the problem. You get the same issue 100 years later, 200 years later, and you're sitting there thinking, didn't we already go through this? At the same time, one thing that I have to admit, it was very interesting to read how the perception of these issues changed with time. How if before marrying a Protestant was a sin, it was horrible, you couldn't imagine it, in 300 years it was completely fine, and that was not a problem at all. It was very interesting to see how people's minds changed, how they decided that we shouldn't be so harsh with that. And it was the same with illegitimate kids as well, which is interesting because even now some people are like, well, it's probably not very nice to have a kid from a woman you're not marrying. Even now there is this, some people believe that it's not the best thing. And of course, before it was a bigger issue. And it's very interesting to see how in 1500s, it's a horrible, horrible thing and you should hide it because your neighbors are gonna laugh at you. But in 1900s, it's fine. It's fine as long as the kid is healthy, as long as the kid is happy, as long as the kid has family who can raise him. So it's very interesting to see this development of people's thoughts on certain issues. And because so much drama happens, you of course start caring about the characters. I felt a lot of emotions, and I was very sad about some things. I was very happy about the others, and some of the heartbreaking topics for me was just injustice in general, when again the aristocrats had to hide from people during the French Revolution, how Jewish people were treated horribly throughout the whole history during World War II, when they were moved from Paris hundreds of years before, when they lost protection from the king and they were moved from Paris. I felt horrible for Protestants who had to hide and who were killed, like thousands of people were killed during the Huguenot Wars. I felt a lot of emotions. I have to say that when you feel emotions and when you care about characters, the book tends to be good for you. You tend to like the book just because you start kind of relating. You think that these characters are, I don't know, your friends, your relatives, and you start thinking, oh my God, this is like my family we're talking to. I just can't be impartial. So the book will give you a lot of emotions. If not like injustice, love will give you emotions. Some like family issues that some people have to go through will give you emotions. I don't think it's possible for you to just stay impartial throughout the whole book. So if you're looking for something that is going to bring you emotions and that will make you feel, yeah, that's the book. And in general, I think Edward Rutherfurd did a huge research for the book, which I'm very grateful for. In his acknowledgement, he says that he did a huge research. He even explained like why some of the families were named this way and not the other way, which is very cool. And of course, I understand that you need to know a lot of French history to be able to write like this. So he definitely did research. I'm very happy he did. Maybe that's why I got so deep into the book and I could feel the atmosphere. But still, that doesn't change the fact that I need more history. For me, a historical novel means that, first of all, you have history. Then you have people whose lives get changed by this history. Here, it feels like we are focusing on lives of people instead of focusing on history. History is happening somewhere there. We have this love story going on here, so history doesn't matter. I wish it wasn't like that. I probably still would choose Dumas to Edward Rutherfurd, just because I prefer when you get more details, when you focus on a small period of time. Let's say you focus on World War II in France. When you focus on that and you write 800 pages about World War II in France, that's what I prefer. That's what I would like to read when I see how everyday people's lives change because of the war. Here you get 100 pages on the whole war and it doesn't feel like people's lives changed. It really doesn't. You see them having fears that they wouldn't have if the war wasn't there, but nothing really changed much. They still had a lot of money. They weren't struggling with food. Almost nobody who you care about dies, and you just don't understand how come. It's World War II. It's one of the biggest wars in history of the wars. How come nothing changes? How come your life stays the same? And that just I didn't get enough. I read the book and I'm still hungry. I want more historical events. I want to see people's lives changing. I don't want people to be on the foreground. I want people to be on the background and history be on the foreground. So that's kind of my thing. But if you mostly care about people's relationships, if you want to know these interesting connections between families that you didn't expect, yeah, Edward Rutherfurd is the guy. All in all, I have to say for me, the book was 7 out of 10. It was good. I really enjoyed reading it. After I finished, it felt like I lived a huge, very long life. These families became like my family. It was a great experience. And it's a very entertaining book to read. As a historical novel, probably 6 out of 10, 5.5 out of 10. As just a very entertaining, interesting book that you can read during like a couple evenings, 7 out of 10. Yeah, absolutely. I can't recommend it to everyone, especially if you are a huge lover of historical novels. This is probably not going to be something that you would be interested in reading, unless you want to get something lighter, unless you want to kind of relax and not read about all these historical hardships, then yes. But if you are just trying to get into historical novels and you need to start kind of lighter, on the lighter side, yeah, this is absolutely the book. And that's all for today. Thank you for staying with me for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like the video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.